What is going on, everyone? We are the Cinefanatics. My name's Robert Adams. And Chris is muted.
I'm muted and I'm Chris Adams. Sorry, I have the YouTube video pulled up over here on the side so I can do the poll questions during the stream.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mute it first, so I was hearing our intro double in my ears.
Okay, so we need to reverse this and go backwards and maybe like on the side or something.
Something like that.
Okay, yeah, because we're doing Christopher Nolan movies, so that's just the way that this goes. Again, I'm hoping y'all are all watching this on the biggest screen available, so because that's what this deserves. Yes, what is going on, everyone? In honor of Oppenheimer, we are tier ranking all of Christopher Nolan's directed movies, starting with 1998's, following on through 2023's Oppenheimer. I would say there's not going to be any spoilers for Oppenheimer since it just came out, but one of two things. One, it's a biography based on something that's already happened, so you probably already know the ending to it anyways. And two, that movie already made so much money, chances are most all of y'all have already seen it anyway, so no real big deal. So anyways, thank y'all for being here as we are watching. Oh, William Harold said, I rented out the loft to watch the stream in 70mm. There you go. That's how you do it. Good job, sir. That is S tier move right there. Anyways, yeah, it is the Marquee tier ranking these movies. This should be a lot of fun. Christopher Nolan's got a really good filmography, or at least we think he does. We'll see how our actual opinion is by the end of this. So before we get started, we got to do the YouTube things. Y'all know how this works. Streamlabs.com/cinefanatics. Y'all got questions, comments, issues. If you want to complain about what movie we're sticking in what tier, I mean, you can complain all you want as long as there's a number and some zeros, preferably the first number not being a zero, attached to the beginning of it.
But you have to at least do $1.
Yeah, at least $1. Just let us know. Also, if you would like us to read off your choices and your rankings, drop those in Streamlabs already. We already got one from Commentatoring Nerd. I will be reading that after we go through our ranking. So yes, if you would like yours read out, drop those in the Streamlabs thing. Also, patreon.com/cinefanatics. If you feel like you want to support us and you have the means, please hop on the tier that's good for you. There's only 2 tiers right now, $1 and $5. The $5 tier gets you all the goodies. Last night we did, or was that last night? No, not last night. The night before last night, we did the monthly movie trivia hangout. We did Christopher Nolan trivia, and it was a lot of fun.
Gather your thoughts. Get them together. Come on.
I can't. My words are going to be lost, much like most everyone who watched Tenet. So, yeah. Makes sense, right? That checks out. Anyways, patreon.com/cinefanatics. Tomorrow night, we will be doing our monthly watch-along. We're going to continue chugging along in the MCU, and we are watching Ant-Man tomorrow night. So if you have Disney Plus, come join us for that group watch. If you don't have Disney Plus, you can still just come watch it with us and just sync up with us. But
that very popular Christopher Nolan film, Ant-Man.
Ant-Man, yes. So that will be tomorrow night. What is that? That's going to be at 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern tomorrow night.
Can we just imagine for a second if Christopher Nolan directed Ant-Man?
I mean, I would like to imagine what it would be like if Christopher Nolan directed a comic book movie, but I have a sneaky suspicion we're about to talk about at least 3 comic book movies that I think maybe 4 technically.
The question on the table is, Christopher Nolan is famous for doing practical effects over CGI. So how would he do Ant-Man?
Miniatures and force perspective.
How does he shrink him? How does he shrink Ant-Man?
I think it would be a lot like how they filmed the force perspective in Lord of the Rings, like say with Gandalf and Bilbo and Frodo. So
that's a take.
That would be horrible if he did Ant-Man. I don't know, maybe. We would just all be lost in the science of it, is what it sounds like.
It'd be a very different movie. It'd be a very different movie.
Anyways, as we get started, there are 12 movies, and here are your 12 movies that we are tier ranking tonight. Starting with 1998's Following, going through Memento, Insomnia, Batman Begins, Prestige, Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, Dunkirk, Tenet, and Oppenheimer. So, yep, it's going to be fun. 12 movies, easy, breezy, beautiful, and that's our lovely faces.
Get yourself together.
I'm fine.
Also, please show no bias when you mention Tenet's name.
What bias? There was no bias in there.
Tenet.
I just said Tenet. It's how I say Tenet.
All these lovely movies, Tenet, and the rest.
I am a big fan of Christopher Nolan films. I mean, I love The Dark Knight. I really like Inception. That was fun. Memento was great. Tenet was a movie. And Oppenheimer, of course, big blockbuster success right now. So, anyways, let's go over the rules. Johnny, you ready with the rules? Should be simple.
Yes, it is. It's got to be simple for you two knuckleheads to be able to figure this one out. It's 2 films per tier. If you don't know what that adds up to, go back to school, you bunch of idiots. Why am I still working here?
Thank you, Johnny. Johnny, for the record, Johnny does get paid adequately for his work and contribution to the Cinefanatics.
I'm thinking about giving him a lower, though.
Giving him a what?
Giving him a lower.
A lower?
The opposite of a raise.
Oh, okay. Saying you're going to give him a lower sounds like something that's going on under the table, and I'm not talking about paying someone.
That's not my fault.
Where's your mind at? Where's your head at? Anyways, let's go ahead and bring out the board. Carl, hit it. Something didn't work right. There it is. Anyways, that is the board for tonight. Those of y'all who might not be familiar with what tier ranking is, this is the Marquee board. We've got 6 tiers here, starting with S meaning superb or whatever else S may be. Awesome, I guess, if you started awesome with the letter S.
Sawsome.
Sawsome. And then all the way down to F, which typically stands for frick this movie, frick this frickin' movie, all the way to frickin' frack. So, yeah, that is how we're going to go. We're going to go one movie at a time, give our opinions of where we would rank them. And then at the very end of this, we may move some stuff around if we actually feel like one movie deserves to be over the others. As we are doing this, Chris will be running a poll in the chat, so feel free to vote on each one of these movies as well. Anyways, let us start with 1998's Following. Chris, why don't you kick this, or do you want me to kick this off so you can start the poll?
The poll's already started.
Okay, so go ahead, Chris.
First of all, I want to say off the top, before we really dive into this, I have a feeling, I don't know, I have a feeling that we're going to agree on a lot of these tiers. There might be a couple we're off on. But I think really at least between you and me, it might come down to where in the tier these movies are falling under more than what tier they're going to be under, which is why the chat is going to be here helping us tonight with the poll, because they're going to be kind of the tiebreaker for us. Yeah. All right. Starting with Following. This is the only Nolan movie I had left to watch before this Marquee, and luckily it is the breeziest of the Nolan movies. What is this, like 70 minutes or 90, 80 minutes, something like that? 70
minutes, yeah.
Yeah, it's basically a slightly longer short film. But it does do a good job of kind of showing us where Christopher Nolan started, and we can see a lot of his roots in this film. I think everybody mentions this when they're talking about this movie. You can see a lot of his roots that he uses in later films, especially the next movie.
Yeah.
Especially the next movie. This is actually really good. You know, it turns out that Christopher Nolan was pretty well born to direct movies, I think, from the jump. So I don't have like a whole lot negative to say about this, other than, of course, you know, probably with a little bit more budget or maybe experience in script writing and everything. If Nolan were to redo this movie now, it could be very different. Otherwise, a very intriguing look on Nolan's nonlinear style to start off his entire filmography with. I thought it was great, but when we're talking about Nolan and we're talking about great, that's pretty much his entire filmography. So for me, I have to put this in the D tier.
Okay. I kind of agree with everything that you said. My only difference is I'm going to put it in the C tier, but yeah, great storytelling. Easily, you could see the foundation for Nolan's work in this. You can see little things that he did in this movie that definitely are built upon in later movies, especially his use of black and white. And usually, when you're looking at a director, if their first movie is black and white, say Kevin Smith, usually it's because black and white is the cheapest option to film your first movie on. It's easier to film in black and white than it is in color. Maybe at that time, I don't know if that still holds true nowadays, but at that time, back in the 90s, definitely true. But what I like about this is the look of that black and white does also give you a stark contrast. You're basically just playing in grayscale, and that leaves a different a feeling about that movie. There's definitely a noir feeling that a shooting in black and white gives you. So I don't know. I haven't researched this enough to determine, is this movie in black and white just because that's all he could afford at the time? I know he did like smaller, like student type films before this, but this is really like his first like real movie credit. I don't know if that's all he could afford, or if he's intentionally shooting in black and white just because he likes that look, and that's the look that fits this movie. But yeah, this movie's breezy, 70 minutes long. It's right now it's free on Tubi with like, I think it had like one commercial break in the middle of it.
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, it was good. I think the story, the twist, the non-linear part of this, I think he did very well, especially because it's an early movie. Again, it's all in black and white. And usually a lot of the non-linear parts of his movies, as we'll talk about in some of these other ones coming up, he may use black and white to kind of help with some of that, to help you as the audience member process it and know exactly what you're looking at, and makes it easier for you to follow. Because spoiler alert, some of the movies just get so convoluted. So it kind of helps knowing what we're talking about, what we're looking at, and what to follow at what point.
I was waiting for you to mention how easy following was to follow.
It was pretty easy to following. I'm just saying. I have this as a C because I thought it was good. Yeah, I definitely think this is easily his foundation.
Yeah, it's a pretty, I mean, look, it's a pretty solid first film for a director, but you got a C, I got a D, chat's got a C. So bottom of C, second tier in the C slot, I believe.
It's going C.
You know what the easy thing about having two movies per tier is?
You already know where they're going to go, and it's not going to be hard to move them around.
We could pretty much determine exactly where they're supposed to go, and we probably won't have to move much, if anything at all, by the end of this.
Yeah,
end of this one.
All right. Moving better at. Yeah, I was reading. I happened to see Commentatoring Nerd's comment, so it lands at C, and for some reason my brain just hooked on that at and said it.
Moving better at Memento.
Memento, also known as a really weird looking visual. What's that called? Where something looks off. Okay, I'll describe it. Even though this image here is a perfect square, it looks like it's tilted.
It's at a Dutch angle.
It looks like it's at a Dutch angle. It's not, though. What is that called?
Skewed?
No.
I don't know, but we got to move on. So Memento is a pretty solid movie. I actually really enjoyed it myself. It might very well be the first Christopher Nolan movie I've ever seen. I think also it turns out
optical illusion. Sorry.
What wonderful. It turns out that it might actually probably have been a lot of people's first Christopher Nolan movies, at least everybody who was catching Nolan pretty much at the start. This would be typically their first foray into it. I know a lot of people probably started with the Batman movies, to be honest, but this one I think would be a lot of first starts here. For me, though, going into it, this is kind of like, I think, one of my first pillars that I can define as going, you know what? Yeah, I really like movies. This one's pretty good. I I dig what's happening here. You know, this Fight Club, you know, those Usual Suspects, those kinds of movies. They all have the theme of like the twist or whatever, something that Christopher Nolan has actually done pretty well with, that M. Night Shyamalan does pretty well with every now and then. But this one I thought, what? This one I thought was pretty interesting because this is also outside of following. Obviously, this is our first real look into non-linear storytelling, the Nolan brand, and it's interesting. It's interesting to see how this one kind of affected audiences and whatnot, and how people kind of were on board or not on board with it. As for me, I think the storytelling was immaculate in this. I think it was fantastic. I think it's absolutely intriguing, you know, getting this look into Guy Pearce's character. And then obviously like everybody else, Joey Pants, Carrie-Anne Moss, all being involved. It's look, if you haven't seen Memento yet, and hopefully like everybody who has who is joining us tonight has seen all of these movies, but if you haven't seen Memento yet, highly recommend you check that out before you get spoiled on how the movie goes and everything. Let me look. SAB. So Memento, again, I'm going to give pretty much every movie on this list, except for maybe like one, the highest of praises. So don't be shocked when I give a movie like this a high praise and I say, this goes in the C tier for me.
Okay, you're saying C?
Yep.
That's the thing. Like, I feel like, and we kind of say this almost like on all of these. Keep in mind, as we're ranking these just amongst their own brethren. We're just only ranking these compared to other Nolan movies. I'm not sitting here comparing Tenet to like Citizen Kane. Because in all honesty, I'd probably put them both in the same place because I don't know what's going on in Citizen Kane either. I mean, I know the ending of Citizen Kane is just that's a whole nother subject. So for me, Memento, I can't remember. I don't think I actually watched Memento before watching at least Batman Begins.
Really?
I can't remember.
I knew about this movie before Batman Begins. I feel like I remembered it, which means you probably told me about it before Batman Begins.
Maybe. I know I knew of it before Batman Begins. I just don't know if I watched it or if it was like I watched Batman Begins. I was like, I like that movie. Spoilers for my ranking on Batman Begins. I like that movie. I like this director. Let's watch Memento because I read what Memento was about and how it works. And I was like, all right, I kind of want to see this. The thing I really like about Memento is that non-linear, the forward and the backward meeting in the middle. That is just a weird concept. And what's strange is I haven't seen anything like that concept used in any other movies, except there's one, what's his name? Arrival.
Denis
Villeneuve. He does it in one of his movies, might be Arrival, but he does something similar, but for the most part, I really haven't seen this kind of a storytelling in any other movie. And I'm wondering if it's one, because the second any other director does it, they're immediately going to get criticism of people going, oh, you're just copying Christopher Nolan's Memento. Like this really is such a weird feature to do to a movie. It's just really hard to replicate it successfully, I believe. And I think people might be intimidated and not want to do that specifically. But yeah, it's like a fun little like Happy Meal toy in the middle of your movie. It's just a fun concept of a movie that, again, no one else really has been able to successfully pull off or even attempt.
Yeah.
I love that. And also the fact that he kept it separate with the color and the black and white portions of it, which is great for someone like me, again, with really bad ADHD, can't really focus on weirdness too much. It worked great. I saw this movie originally long time ago, and then I watched it again in a college film class. And while I had an appreciation to begin with, that college film class really dove into the movie making, the storytelling aspects of this movie, and I loved it even more from that. I have Memento as an A.
Ooh.
So between the two of us, we're at a B right now with Memento.
And then it looks like chat is voting B as well.
All right.
So that's
that was easy.
Nothing is landing where I wanted it so far.
Hey, if everyone could just do that for the rest of these, that would be great. Well, okay.
This next one.
We'll see with this next one. Insomnia. If I could start first on this one, that would be Ducky.
Feel free.
This is the only movie that Christopher Nolan did not write or co-write, which I feel like is kind of obvious. This movie, what I find funny, the only thing I really like about this movie is that it's called Insomnia, which is, for those of you who might not know scientific terms, means you can't fall asleep. This movie is not that, because I could fall asleep to this movie. This movie is dull. It's a great concept. Like, if you were to tell me there's a movie where Al Pacino's a cop going after a serial killer played by Robin Williams, I'd be like, fuck yeah, that's going to be a great movie. That's going to be awesome. No, it's not. It's so slow and dull. And I was like, what happened? On paper, this should have been a blockbuster, but no. I don't know. I have this as my first F.
Yeah. This is probably one that I need to give another shot at some point as well. But it's really honestly the only Nolan film that I don't like. It's the only one of his entire filmography that I'm not a fan of particularly. That being said, again, giving it another try at another point in time, I might find that it's still really good. I think even in my first watch, I said, you know what? Generally speaking, this is a well written movie. It is well presented. You guys shouldn't sleep on Insomnia. Nice. But yeah, its pacing is also not for me. I'm not on board with the pace of the movie. Everyone's performance is fantastic. Robin Williams is really good in this movie. Al Pacino also really good. Hilary Swank really good. Everyone's performance is top tier. But the movie itself just doesn't flow with me. I end up tuning out. It is in fact a slow movie. It is. The pacing is a lot slower. Specifically, it's actually a lot slower than anything else in Nolan's filmography here.
And to be honest, I think it's referred to as Insomnia because it takes place, I believe it takes place in Alaska, if I remember correctly. And it's one of those areas of Alaska that has like 30 days or 3 months of daylight, and then like the 30 days and 3 months of nighttime. So
that also being said, I do find it interesting that the one movie of Nolan's that he didn't write is the one that I'm not on board with. So, to Tim Franco's point in the chat, Nolan not writing it is a positive. I'd say that, yes, it might be true that him and Jonathan both need to tag team write things together. But at the same time, I just vibe with their writing. And for this one not being written by Nolan, I can tell this one definitely stands out from the rest of his movies. This one does not have the same kind of general character to it that the rest of the movies have. So in that regard, this one also is my F. Let me run another poll real quick for the chat to decide. This is why I really wish they gave us more than 4 options on polls.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot easier.
Ooh. Yeah, I like, this is one that I would still be open to revisiting, maybe reading a little bit more on. But I mean, this one also just feels like it's the one movie out of all of the movies on Nolan's filmography here. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's done by Nolan. I think there's definitely parts of it that you could tell some aspect of Nolan's direction, but otherwise, I don't feel like it really gives off or shows off Nolan's ability to direct as well. I think after doing Following and Memento obviously being a passionate first movie, I feel like this is a studio picture that I guess Warner Brothers gave him and was saying, "Hey, you can do this." And then if this is even slightly successful, we'll look at giving you something better.
This is interesting. So Chad is telling us to go jump off a cliff because they're ranking it at a C.
Okay.
So which means we got 2 Fs and they've got a C. That puts this thing in the D tier. Which this confuses me. I'm very interested to see, based on this, what the chat feels is an F tier movie.
Yeah.
In Nolan's filmography. I mean, obviously, I think there's one other one. I think actually both of us are going to put it in the F tier for me in comparison to everything else on the list. You, because you just don't like it.
It shouldn't be a surprise as to what movie that is from me at this point.
So
I'm probably guess.
I'm very curious. Obviously, yeah, I think there's going to be an overwhelming opinion that movie's going to end up in the F tier, but
yeah,
we got a while till we get there. So
yeah. Anyways, moving on to the next one, and we get into kind of like what I was saying. I feel like Insomnia was a studio picture, and Nolan proved himself, even though I don't feel like it's that good. I think Insomnia did moderately well in the box office, and it was enough for Warner Brothers to give Nolan and trust Nolan with the holy grail of comic book movies, Batman Begins in 2005. This is a great Batman movie. I absolutely love this movie. What else? I don't even know. Perfect balance between he nails the balance between the realism and the comic bookness. Like typically you're like, okay, this guy's dressed like a bat. This is all kinds of cartoonish and like I can't take it seriously. I could take him seriously in this, or at least until Christian Bale speaks with that Batman voice.
Where are the other drugs going?
Yeah. But I like it. It is very long, or at least it feels long, but it doesn't feel slow. Like it is nailing each point that it needs to nail to accurately show us Bruce Wayne becoming Batman. And I love the way it does it while still also highlighting the rest of Gotham. We do get to see more of like the seedy underbelly of Gotham City. I feel like more in this movie than like in any of the other Batman movies that have come before it. They actually made the underbelly of Gotham a character to it. And I feel like it works very well. The casting is phenomenal. I wouldn't necessarily say that Christian Bale is my go-to favorite Batman, but I think he does a decent job. I do love the cast. Out of the casting of this movie, easily hands down 100% best cast is Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow. That is one of the best cast. Not only one of the best castings in this movie, that's one of the best like comic book castings ever done. That's like Patrick Stewart, Professor X levels of just the perfect person to play that role. And I am a huge fan of Liam Neeson as Henry Ducard or Ra's al Ghul, not Roz. I just wish they pronounced that properly, but whatever.
You're going to die on this soapbox, I swear. Every single time this movie gets mentioned, you have to mention that.
The Ra's al Ghul, yeah. I grew up with the cartoon, and so that's my standby. No one knew how to pronounce Ra's al Ghul before because we all read it in a comic book. The cartoon was the first thing that actually said it out loud. So that's where I stand by. This movie is good. I do have it rated as an A because obviously there's a couple other movies I feel like are higher ranked than Batman Begins. But yeah, good movie.
Yep. Likewise, you know, here's the thing about this. And also, I was actually worried that you were going to put both Batman movies in the S tier, and I was gonna challenge you not to do that. And I'm glad you said A on here because obviously it's an A for me too. The big discussion right now that a lot of people still have is which of the Nolan Batman movies is better, Dark Knight or Batman Begins? And I hear the arguments. I hear the arguments for Batman Begins. It is an excellent movie, and if it had just been Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises, obviously it's Batman Begins that would be going in the S tier here instead. But I do 100% prefer Dark Knight for many multiple reasons. Batman Begins, though, as it stands by itself, is absolutely fantastic, and absolutely is one of the gold standards for how to do an on-screen Batman. If you're doing the grounded, realistic take, I think there's still a lot of room to do the more comic booky, cartoony kind of take on Batman, and still succeed with that as well. But yeah, as you said, everything about this, Cillian Murphy as Jonathan Crane, obviously the standout. The whole dealing with the gangsters, the way they treated the death of Bruce's parents, and his reasoning for becoming Batman. The whole like how he got his bat suit and everything. Just the whole origin, like this to me is one of the best superhero origin movies that have been made. And so for that regard, it is very high up on the list. I do have it at the top of my A tier. We got an A tier in the chat as well. So I think that thing is sitting in the number one spot in the A tier, and it's not moving.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I was torn between this or another movie as an F as an S for me, not F. I'm crazy. But yeah, I was torn, but I decided to lean towards another movie. All right. The Prestige.
Ooh,
which was like essentially the first Nolan movie that a lot of people saw that didn't have anything to do with Batman, because everyone liked Batman Begins so much. When The Prestige came out with Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman, who was already riding high off of playing Wolverine, yeah, a lot of people enjoyed Prestige.
Batman and Wolverine in the same movie? What in the world?
Yeah. For me, I think this is a fun movie, a really good fun movie about a rivalry between these two guys. Bale and Jackman are great. I will have to say though, if I was to choose my favorite casting in this movie, I have to give it to David Bowie as Nikola Tesla. Just the second I saw him on screen, like I may have been like a little apprehensive when I heard he was playing Tesla, but the second I see him on that screen, I'm like, yes. He looks good. He sounds good. It just works. And it's just really weird. Like, I don't know what was it that made Nolan go, you know what? I should get David Bowie to play this role. Where'd that come from? So, I think this movie's fun. The first time I watched it, the story I feel like was a little bit slow and convoluted, especially if you know how this movie ends. Getting to that ending, even though once you know that ending, you go back and watch this movie and it kind of just slaps you in the face with like, you should know how this is going to end the entire time. They make so many references to it. I feel like it was kind of obvious, but yeah, it's a good ending. It's a good movie, especially on the rewatches. I have this as a B, though.
Yeah. It is. Gosh, I mean, this is another one. This is actually this movie. I remember what I want to say about this one. This movie exemplifies the movie that every single time I watch it, I will pick up something new and different. This movie. I think perfects that, and it exemplifies using that as a filmmaking process. If you could even say that Nolan intentionally uses that thought pattern as a filmmaking process, how to do it perfectly, basically. Because the beautiful thing about this movie is that it marries the idea of the magic trick with Nolan's storytelling capabilities, and that is a match made in heaven, essentially. It does a very good job of doing the sleight of hand right in front of you. Mm-hmm. It does everything that a good magician does. Like, Nolan is the magician here in this movie. it's one that like I really wanted, even though I've seen it multiple times, I really wanted to rewatch it again before we did this tier ranking. And honestly, there's no reason why I can't still rewatch it, and I probably will very soon give a rewatch to this movie, just because it absolutely is one of his best. Here's the thing, though. They're all his movies are one of his best. This is the theme tonight. All of his movies are one of his best. So like this movie, I love it. It's at the top of B tier for me. There's just 4 other movies I like better than it. Chat is saying S tier.
Interesting. Okay, so they're saying S. You said B. I said B. So this gonna go at the bottom of A.
Interesting. I feel like I'm gonna be very disappointed on my number 1 in the S tier.
I don't. I feel like with great confidence, I know where this one's going to go. So far, like I feel like I've been doing a pretty decent job of really just describing passionately why I like or may not like some of Christopher Nolan's movies. Then we get to The Dark Knight. There is absolutely nothing I can say about The Dark Knight that has never been uttered by anyone else or a mass of people before. The Dark Knight is the masterpiece of Christopher Nolan's career. Easily, hands down. This is the S tier of S tier movies. Not just the casting, but I mean, the casting, obviously, Heath Ledger, just... but everyone else just works so well. The story works so well. Yes, is it a little weird that like the story is Heath Ledger's Joker just happens to get his way by coincidence most of the time? Absolutely. But it works because almost all comic book movies run like that. I mean, have you seen Captain America Civil War? It's the same circumstance for Zemo. I was going to call him Nemo. For Zemo in that movie. It's just coincidence that his plan just happens to be working the way he wants it to until the end, obviously. And same thing here. This is a perfect movie. It holds my attention from beginning to end. I love it. I've seen this movie so many times. I don't have any other words for it. Just perfect.
This movie is not my number 1 in the S tier. It's my number 2 in the S tier. Listen, I think we're all voting S tier here. Honestly, we are all voting S tier here. And I had really just kind of one thing to say. Again, like you said, everyone else has said everything about this movie that could possibly be said, including this, but Nerd also said it best in the chat. Yeah, put this movie in S tier.
Yeah. All right.
Someone was really trying with that C through F there. Someone was really trying their hardest to get a C through F. There's no shot this movie was ever going to be in C through F.
No. This movie is the definition of an S tier.
Yeah, it's not my number 1 S tier. I just want to make that clear. It is my number 2 on this list.
What is your... Oh, I know which one's your S tier. Your number 1 S tier.
Do you?
It's actually between 2. One of which being Inception.
Yeah, I know which 2 you're thinking.
Yeah, and so it's either this one or another one. Inception. So kind of what I was saying about The Prestige, where like I feel like a lot of people just went to go see The Prestige because they enjoyed Christopher Nolan doing Batman Begins. Inception, I feel like it's kind of the same, only even bigger, just because of the massive powerhouse The Dark Knight was in the box office. That just led a lot of people like, okay, I want to see what this guy does next. And then you add in Leo. You add Leo DiCaprio in here and just a massively huge cast in this movie. Also, like one of the first movies that I actually started realizing who Tom Hardy was. This the thing about this movie, again, it's an insane idea. I don't know who comes up with this, probably in a dream, but this is a crazy, this is a crazy movie that, again, typically someone like me who can't focus on stuff that gets really convoluted, this movie shouldn't work for me. And when I first watched it, I was a little, but upon rewatches, this movie had enough of a plot point that I found intriguing enough that I just kept watching it. And the more I watch it, this is the movie for me, kind of like what you were saying with Prestige. This is the movie for me. Every time I rewatch it, I understand it so much more. And I just appreciate it even more. Visually stunning. The cinematography, the score are probably the best out of Nolan's filmography. Dark Knight, Batman movies, the score is really good as well, and a couple of others that we have yet to talk about. Yeah, this is the other movie that I have in S tier.
Wow. This is not the other movie I have in S tier.
Well, then I know what the other movie you have in S tier is.
But I do have an A. So Inception is, for me, I think almost each movie of Nolan's you can use to kind of showcase a how do I word this? It is, each movie is perfected at one aspect of Nolan's style. In this case, while this movie is pretty much all exposition the entire way through, almost every line of dialogue is telling you exactly what's happening in every given point.
Yeah,
because you need to be able to just be in with the crew the entire time. I think this movie does a good job at combining that, the exposition side, with monumental visuals. This is look, we from the first time that I saw the trailer with the city folding in over itself, I was like, I gotta watch that movie. I'm going to be sitting in a theater seat. I'm going to be watching that movie. That one shot sold me. Does that make me a basic film goer? I don't know. I don't care. It looked good. It looked interesting. It looked intriguing. I sat there in that theater seat and I watched this movie. I will say, probably because of the Christopher Nolan of it all, I think at this point we had seen Batman Begins. We had seen Dark Knight. We had seen, Memento. We had seen movies that were, Prestige. We've seen these movies by Christopher Nolan. At this point, his name was selling the movie. And I think after this movie, his name was cemented as a director who puts butts in seats.
Yep.
This movie is fantastic. This movie is easily rewatchable. In terms of like the higher concept films that he's made, this one's probably the most easily rewatchable of those films. You could easily just throw this one on and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Is it a little hard to follow? I don't know, maybe on your first viewing. But honestly, even my first viewing, I knew what was going on. I could follow it. I knew what was happening. He's definitely got some other movies where it's definitely harder to follow what's happening, but this one wasn't one of them for me. I kind of generally got what was happening, and I think it's because the beauty of his nonlinear storytelling and how it worked here, in conjunction with the different dream layers, the different layers. They would cut back and forth between the different layers, and I'm following because I know, oh, that's where they just were. Oh, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's hanging out in that hotel. Okay, that was this layer. Okay, now they're the snowscapes. That's the next layer. That van is going off the bridge. That was that first layer up there. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot here that the movie is doing, but it just does it so well. I would have if you asked me back earlier, I probably would have put this in S tier if we did this tier ranking earlier. But after giving it a lot of thought, and after having seen another movie multiple times, I'm putting this one in the A tier. It's so high up there. I mean, honestly, S and A are easily S for me, but pretty much his entire filmography is almost an S for me, except for Insomnia. Chad is also saying yes. Oh, yeah, and then the ending, too, where you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, the ending is confusing, but it's okay. It's okay to be confusing. So
we got 2 S's and an A.
yeah, so it's going at the tail end of S.
When it comes to the top 4 movies, I don't think I can really be mad.
Yeah.
In any order of these, honestly, I'm still like not completely on board with Prestige sitting there. I would still bump it back down because my other S tier needs to fit in somewhere amongst the 4.
Yeah. And I know which one that is, and we'll move on and talk about it here in a little bit. Next one, The Dark Knight Rises. Chris, if you would like to start, because I feel like I've been starting on most of these.
Well, I mean, it's been good because I've been doing the polls too. Dark Knight Rises, in my opinion, is the worst of the 3 Nolan Batman movies. It is the one to me that feels the most like, well, shoot, we got to do another sequel. Nolan, get to cracking out a movie. Get it done. And it's the one that feels like Nolan was like, okay, well, if I have to do a third one, I guess this is the movie I'm going to do. Especially because you can tell. I feel like you can really tell in the bones of this movie, he really, really wanted to use Joker again. And obviously, given circumstances, that just wasn't on the table. But I think what was left initially when I first saw this movie was disappointing. I can't say that I was 100% on board the first viewing. Watching it again later and upon repeated viewings later, it's still a very solid movie. It's still a really, really good movie in and of itself by itself. The whole organization of what Bane does to Gotham and then how Batman comes back to against that, especially coming back from, being completely broken. Like almost twice, I think. He was like broken at the beginning of the movie and he's like broken halfway through the movie.
He had like leg issues or he was missing cartilage in his knee. It's like, how do you overcome? What happens when we fall, Bruce? We got to pick ourselves back up. It's that telling again, essentially. It is by itself. If you're looking at it in a bubble, obviously we need to be informed by what comes before it in Batman Begins and Dark Knight. But if we look at it in a bubble, I would say this is a solid S tier movie by itself, depending on again, of course, what you're ranking it up against, I guess. But by itself, this is still like a really S tier film watching it. On this list, I don't have it as high. S, A, B. I have it at the bottom of my C tier. It is the second movie in my C tier. So yeah, you and I are agreeing on I think you and I have agreed on every Batman movie, which would make sense. This is C tier for me. If it wasn't for Batman Begins and Dark Knight, this movie probably actually would be S tier. It is a really good Batman movie. It is just the worst of the 3. And
I wish there was another word to use other than worst. I'm sure there is, and we're just not thinking of it.
Possibly.
It's the lesser of the 3 movies, but it's still really good.
Yeah. The Talia twist was a bit silly. The only thing about the Talia twist is I feel like anyone who knew the comics knew that was coming. The second that like Marion Cotillard was announced as being in this movie, we're all like, especially her character. We knew that she was someone who also worked for Bruce Wayne. I was like, yeah, she's Talia. Just stop playing around with us. It's Talia. So,
also the Robin, the Robin thing was that felt like it was forced. Like Nolan's hand was being pulled by Warner Brothers to stick that in there.
Which I don't understand because there was no intention of doing a 4th Dark Knight movie. So
they really didn't need to do that.
No, I think that would have been fine had Maybe like if we were to find out that like his real name was like Dick Grayson instead of John Blake, that would have probably been cool. Like just a nice subtle nod without blatantly calling him Robin. That
Yeah.
But yeah, this is C tier. It's a good movie. It's not as satisfying as the previous one. The logic issues in this movie, namely, for example, the one that everyone goes to is how he escaped the prison and then all of a sudden got into Gotham when nobody can get in and out of Gotham. And I get it. The idea is we're supposed to understand that he's Batman and he's able to do this when no other human being can.
He's very smart.
But it just still feels really weird. And there's like other like little bit of logic leaps in this. I feel like a lot of the scenes on the bridge where they're trying to convince them like, hey, let us pass, let us cross. If everyone would just shut up and listen to each other, a lot of those conversations could have been easily resolved. But you know, movie's got a movie, yo. So
wait, so you're saying Batman escaped from a prison and got himself into a city that was completely locked down in and out? How did he do that? Hey, shut up.
Yeah. I'm going to need you to get all the way off my back about this.
Well, let me hop off that thing.
Yeah, I have this as a C also. It's good. It's a fun Batman movie. It's probably, in my opinion, probably better than almost all the other previous Batman movies of like the 90s, like except probably 89, even though I do still have a soft spot for Batman Forever because it's just colorful and a lot of fun, and I like Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne. I think this is probably one of the better Batman movies. So yeah, that being said, it's still C tier in this particular ranking.
And everybody is in agreement here. It is C's all around for us and the chat.
That is nice and easy.
So top of C tier, it's not moving.
Yeah, I feel like the Batman movies on here, no problem whatsoever. We know where they're going to go.
I hit the poll by accident. Everybody knows what movie is next.
Oh,
y'all get your votes in for Interstellar. I didn't mean to click enter on the poll so quickly.
Wait, Interstellar's the next movie?
Yeah, unless Nolan somehow squeezed another movie between 2012 and 2014.
I mean, he did, and he's making that movie right now, and it's getting released back then, because that's how Christopher Nolan makes movies.
Oh, I thought you were trying to say he was pulling like a Richard Linklater.
Yeah, like filming a movie over like 20 years.
It'll be released in 10 years.
Richard Linklater's making a movie that takes place over like what 40 or 50 years right now. It's just that's insane.
Gosh, I hope nobody loses their life in that time.
Yeah, or gets like accused of anything that they shouldn't be doing because they should be decent human beings. But besides the point,
does the strike stretch that time out?
Ooh,
I don't know.
That sounds like good questions for another time. But yeah, Interstellar obviously is the next one. Speaking of time and dealing with time, I'll be quick. I just watched this for the first time before doing for the Marquee here. I was a little intimidated because I heard it is a very heady movie. You have to think and you have to focus. And I'm very intimidated by movies like that just because I can't focus. I need a nice, simple, just talk to me like I'm an idiot type of movie sometimes. This movie is actually really good. I was able to follow along without really having to refer to Wikipedia or anything else while I was sitting here watching it. I think it does a very good job with the story it's telling, and I think it's a very good story. For me, though, I have this as a B. All right, Chris, tell us why it's S tier.
I'm looking at the chat right now, and like you, I get it. Like, I know your opinions, whatever. I'm looking at the chat right now, and y'all are making me so very, very sad. And I think all of you need to go watch Interstellar again, to be honest. Like, all y'all need to go sit down. I don't care if you just watched it before this Marquee. Go watch it again. This is Nolan's best movie. My opinion, easily his best movie. From the visuals, to the cast, to the story, to the soundtrack. Gosh, the music in this movie, holy. and just how everything is told and the way it's told. It's obviously very linear, but once again, we're dealing with a version of time that is not earthly. We're doing a version of time that, like, Nolan loves time. Nolan loves to mess with time, it seems. And this movie, he just does it so perfectly in this and gives such a good reason why, with the science behind it, of them having gone through the black hole and how that dilates time a little bit. It's easily my favorite. It's easily my favorite of the Nolan movies. Having seen it again recently, I consider the brief period of time I spent with you watching it while you were watching it as another rewatch, because I damn near watched most of it in that setting. When they come back from that first planet,
is that the wave planet?
Yeah. And Matthew McConaughey is sitting there watching the video of his son, all the videos of his son, saying, we haven't heard from you. And then like 20 years pass or whatever, something like that. And he's like, I think I'm going to stop sending these messages now. I'm just kind of giving up that you're still out there. This is your grandchild, by the way. This is my wife, all this stuff. And like just watching, first of all, one of Matthew McConaughey's best performances. It just flat out is.
Yeah.
I, even having seen this movie multiple times, was losing it just sitting there behind you watching this movie. That scene breaks me. And almost honestly, and I don't care. I don't care what judgment I have for this. That scene alone, honestly, is what really solidifies this as the number one in S tier for me. This is my favorite Nolan movie. It's just good. It's just so good. I mean, look, chat saying B. That breaks my heart. You said B. I said S. It's top of S for me. So if we got two B's and an S, that means it goes into A tier, right?
I would say I would put that like at the end of A tier. So like where Prestige is sitting at right now.
Oh, wait. Prestige bumps down and Interstellar gets to join the 4?
That's where I would actually call it.
All right, I'm fine. I mean, I'm sad that it's not number one S tier, but, I get it.
So I am going to move Memento over.
Jessica Nerd says Jessica Chastain is the best part. Yes, she really does a lot of good work in this movie.
I agree, though. Like what you were saying about Matthew McConaughey, this is the one movie that I really feel like he doesn't at some point just all right his way through. He is like doing a career-defining acting role in this movie.
Yeah.
It's one of those, I don't see Matthew McConaughey, even though he's got an obvious like look and sound to him that everyone here in Austin, Texas, like copies almost on a daily basis because he's one of our proudest citizens. But yeah, he does a really good job in that. Okay, so next one is Dunkirk.
Wow, he went 4 years between movies, huh?
Is that a 4? No, it was 3. Interstellar was 2014. Dunkirk was 2017.
Oh, I thought Dunkirk was 18. Oh,
uh-uh. He's never done more than 3 years. Most of his movies are actually 2 years apart.
Yeah, that's why I was like losing my. I was like, I could have sworn this was 2018, but if you want to start.
I think this movie was very well shot, very well acted. I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about, again, what happened historically that this movie was being made to talk about. So I didn't know about all these soldiers being stranded in France. but it was very intriguing. Once I heard that's what this was about and I read like a little bit about it, I was like, okay, this sounds like this could be very compelling because you got like a ton of soldiers who are tired, homesick. They just want to get the F out of there. And there's this whole epic movie. I was like, this sounds like it could be really good. And it looks, visually wise, it looks really good. Again, Nolan, not a big fan of CGI. A lot of those like soldiers who were there were all actual people hired to play stranded soldiers. And the look, the feel, the costumes, the sound, especially like this is one of those movies I feel like I also would want to call out the sound mixing, like with the effects and stuff, more than just the score itself, which again, the score is really good. If you've seen the trailer for Dunkirk, you already know that this movie brought it in the music department, but just like a lot of the stuff in here is just, it's really good. But when watching the movie, I don't feel like it elevates itself too much more than just a standard war film. I think it's fun. I think it's entertaining, or not fun. I think it's entertaining. I think it's visually stunning, but it's not a movie I'm wanting to go back and watch. Now, I mean, I feel like you can say that about a lot of war movies. There's definitely some war movies I have gone back and rewatched multiple times. Full Metal Jacket, I absolutely love, and I'm one of those few people that watches it beyond the first half of that movie. The second half of Full Metal Jacket is, in my opinion, just as good, if not maybe a little bit better than the first half. But everyone's just so focused on the basic training portion of that. This movie is just... it's a snapshot of this one little time in this war. And that's really all it is. I don't think it does. It doesn't rely on rewatches so much. Eventually, I'll probably rewatch this again just because I like some of the acting in this. Some of the act, like Tom Hardy is a standout in this. Mark Rylance. I love Mark Rylance. Almost everything I've seen Mark Rylance in, I have absolutely adored, including like Luca Guadagnino's Bones and all. He's so good in that. Ready Player One, he is like the standout character of Ready Player One by far. But like this one, I think he does a really good job just playing like the ordinary guy with the boat. Cillian Murphy, great role. Not huge, but he does very well in that small role he has. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of, I think the big takeaway on this was, what's his face? Is it Harry Styles?
Harry Styles was in it, yeah.
I think this was one of the first movies that Harry Styles was in, and he did really good.
I just love this. Nothing shows your age more than the fact that you just what's his face Harry Styles.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I knew he was one of those what's their names? One Direction, Backstreet Boys guys. I did that one on purpose. I know he was a part of One Direction. Now, to be honest, he's the only person I know from One Direction. But I think he did pretty well in this. So yeah. Barry Keoghan. Barry Keoghan was in this as well. So yeah, I think it's a very well-made movie. It's just not anything that is entertainment value-wise. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, here's the thing. I rewatched this because I'd only seen it once when we saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm due a rewatch. I need to rewatch this thing so I can kind of refresh my mind on it going into this tier ranking. And here's the thing. I think there's a lot to talk about this movie. I really do. I think when we're talking about Nolan's filmography, this one does get passed over a lot. And I understand the reasoning why a lot of times, biographical war films, unless they really do something interesting with the characters, it can easily get glossed over. And unfortunately, the one thing this movie has working against it with general public is that Nolan wanted to do this movie. He almost wanted to like improvise the entire thing and go as dialogue-less as possible, which I think of all his movies, this one probably does have the least amount of dialogue. I believe the script was only a few pages long or so. Most of this movie is based on cinematography, music, and the action of what's happening in the scenes. And those are the bones for this movie. And I think that by itself is actually very intriguing of a concept to do for a major feature-length film. Like, this isn't an indie project. This is, this is actually like a studio put money behind this, say, go for it. We're going to put this movie out. So this is one of those things that gives me great respect for Nolan, is that he takes these very experimental ideas and puts them forth in a big budget studio movie. This one being, again, another way of playing with time, where you have 3 different scenes, I guess, 3 different pieces of time. One is supposed to take over the period of, like, I think an hour. One takes over the course of a day, and then one takes over the course of a week. And how all these things go at their own speed, and then eventually all culminate at the end. So the hour is up, the day is up, and the week is up all at the same time. And I think that is, in structure, very fascinating. But that being said, when you go as dialogueless as possible, it is true you don't really give a whole lot for us to grasp onto with the characters themselves. There's only a minimal thing to get me to really care about what happened with Barry Keoghan, Mark Rylance, and Cillian Murphy. It is a sad moment, but I easily move on past it because I wasn't like endeared to these characters as much as some other movies might endear me. But everybody does fantastic in their role still. So that's something to say for them too. But in terms of the rest of Nolan's filmography, one, I do think this movie needs to be talked about a little bit more in terms of like how he makes it and everything. But almost all the rest of the movies are just better movies. And I don't know. I would be curious to ask where Nolan ranks this in his own movies, where he lists this amongst his own movies, because I feel like he would, being the filmmaker, I feel like he would rank this higher than any of us who watch his movies would rank it, which I think would be an interesting thing. I would love to have a conversation with the man if I'm ever blessed to be able to do so one day in life. But for me, D tier. I have it over Following in the D tier for myself.
Yeah, and I didn't say my ranking, but I also have it D. So
we gotta run one more poll real quick for the chat because they voted C through F. Give me a second here. Boop-a-doo-boo-doo-doo-doo.
Jeremy Miller, send him the StreamYard link. Hey, Christopher Nolan, would you mind taking the time to come join us as we rip apart your filmography here?
Honestly, that's about one of the only times that I would kind of give up the reins of control, because he would come in and be like, hey, I see your 2 movie per tier rule, and I don't care about that. All of my movies are S tier. Suck it. I'd be like, all right.
Well, fine. Mr. Nolan, we have to disagree. Nope. Bye.
No. They're all S tier.
Yeah,
fine. The king has spoken.
But what about Insomnia? I mean,
he's like, fine. Insomnia's A.
I just realized that if you were to actually have that conversation, I feel like you need to post up that meme of Leo DiCaprio talking to Cillian Murphy in Inception.
Yeah.
How appropriate.
I said D. Where'd you say?
D.
You said D. Chat right now is actually split between C and F, which in my mind is a D.
Yeah. So that would be a D.
So I'm going to go ahead and say we're throwing this bad boy in D. D for Dunkirk.
We are giving Dunkirk the D. Oh, wait. In hindsight, I realize I probably could have phrased that differently.
And there are also just some times where you just don't have to, Yeah.
All right. That means the last 2 movies have to go F.
No.
Which I feel like there's a possibility, at least on one.
On one, not the other.
All right. let's talk about Tenet.
Tenet.
I
Tenet.
want to make sure this movie looks good. When I first saw the trailer and I saw like what this movie was going to be bringing us, I was on the edge of my seat. I was ready for it. It looked awesome. Whatever was happening in this movie was super intriguing. And then the pandemic happened, and while I don't think that necessarily hurt my opinion of this movie, both me and my brother, we both still managed to go watch Tenet in the theater when it first came out. And we were both still eager to see this movie. And then it was like, this was a movie I knew ahead of time, like I'm going to need to try my damnedest to focus, to pay attention. And I think for a little while there, I think I was doing pretty decent. The whole like opera house scene at the very beginning, I feel like I walked out of Tenet and I was at home. That's great. The opera house scene at the beginning, I feel like I was keeping track of it. I was getting it. I was understanding. They showed like that. The camera zoomed in on that cord on the backpack or whatever. I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be remembering this. This is going to pop up later. Spoiler alert, it did. I was right. But it was shortly after that the whole forwards and backwards thing, I know they tried to explain it shortly thereafter. The protagonist is actually talking to a science type woman who is explaining how this works, and her explanation did nothing. Like it left me with more questions than answers. And I think from then on, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to follow this movie. I have no idea what's going on. And I'm just completely lost. There's definitely some cool scenes. There's definitely a science lady. There's definitely some cool scenes. The shot of them like going into the machine while in the other hallway is the shot of them backwards coming out of the machine. I think that was a cool visual, and a lot of like where the forward and backward running scenes kind of intersect, I thought were really cool visual wise. I have no idea what was actually happening story wise, but they looked cool. And this was another movie, like some of the sound design was really good. And of course, this movie is also very notorious for really bad sound design. And that's a problem, is if we can't pay attention to your movie to begin with, having poor sound design on top of that, poor audio quality, is not helping. So like, I kind of felt a little bit like that with the Across the Spider-Verse that we got earlier this year, or a month ago or so. So yeah, I feel like there's a good movie in there somewhere. I can't focus on it. And I don't want to give it another shot. Like some of these other movies, I'm willing to eventually give Insomnia another shot someday. I don't want to give Tenet another shot. I'm just done. So this is F tier for me, easily, if you couldn't tell.
I like this movie, but if I'm being honest with myself and you're backing me into a corner to tell you what exactly it is about right now, just off the cuff, off the top of my head, I couldn't. I know that it involves, Kenneth Branagh's character, and he's going to destroy the entire world if they don't lock away pieces of some kind of machine or something like that. And then the need for the time backwards and forwards. Sure. It's a fun way to play with time, I guess. Visually, the movie is a lot of fun to look at for me. I do have a lot of fun with it. Acting performances wise, I love everybody in the movie. They all do a fantastic job. This is one of those movies I am willing to give it multiple tries. I don't care. Like you said, I recognize there's a movie there that I could like. But for me, I am willing to continue giving it a try to see if I like it more and more. The fact of the matter that I'm already in a position where like I like what I'm seeing. I want to watch it again, and I want to watch it again, and I want to watch it again to try to pick more pieces and more pieces to try to understand more and more. I'm intrigued by the idea of trying to understand more and more and more upon rewatches. It's not a movie that is plain as day, clear as anything the first time you watch it, or the second, or the third. But it is one that I eventually will, whenever I'm eventually in the mood to do so, we'll give it another try, and we'll be paying even more attention to try to see if I can pick out. It's also one of those things where it's like, this is a good movie to pull up the Wikipedia article and read along in the plot, just in case you are losing track of where you're at. But that being said, if I'm being completely honest with myself, while I do like the movie, I have to be honest with the idea that I couldn't tell you exactly what it's about word for word right here, in which I think that for me means amongst the rest of these movies, which I could easily tell you what they're about and what's going on, that means I have to put this one in F as well. There's only one movie that I put in F tier that I don't like, and that was Insomnia. Or I mean, I like it fine, but in comparison to the rest of these movies, I would say I don't like Insomnia. All these other movies I like. And so it's weird that I do have to put a movie that I do like in the F tier. But I think logically, this makes the most sense. It's a movie I can't just sit here and tell you, well, this is what Robert Pattinson was doing the entire time. This is who John David Washington is, and this is what was going on. This is why Quicksilver showed up really quickly. And yes, I will say Quicksilver and not Craven, even though he looked more like Craven in that than Quicksilver, but still, F tier for me. Chat saying F tier as well. I think everybody just all around is saying F tier for this movie.
I'm actually going to go so far as I'm going to put it at the end of F tier, because whatever is above this is a better movie.
Well, here's the thing that I foresee. Oppenheimer, the next movie, it's not going in F tier.
No. So, I mean, we could just let's save some time, and while you're talking about Oppenheimer, I'm going to move Insomnia down to its proper place in this tier.
We tried to tell you guys. That's where it's going to go.
Yeah. I mean, cool. It hung out in D for a little while, but
oh my gosh, guys, can y'all also please not rank Oppenheimer C through F so I don't have to type out Oppenheimer 2 times in the poll? I mean, no, seriously, y'all rank.
Can you not be serious about your opinions just so Christopher doesn't have to type out that word?
Why did you use my full name?
Because we're talking about Christopher Nolan. It's there.
No, y'all honestly, y'all rank it wherever you want. I'm just kidding, but.
Make Chris type it again.
Make me type it again. Yeah, Oppenheimer. This is another movie that I'm gonna have to watch again.
Yes.
This is obviously you can tell what's going on a little bit easier than Tenet here. Also, based on the fact that it's based on history, it's historical. There's much for me to still grasp from this film because. Multiple times while we were watching this, I turned to you. I was like, okay, catch me up. What was happening just now? I was like, this is one of those situations where I think you'll mention this too. Yes, it is good to read up on the historical story, the context, the individuals, the people involved, all that. Because I'm sitting there going, okay, what is Strauss's problem with Oppenheimer again? Why does he have an issue with him? And I if I had known that stuff, if I had remembered that stuff in history, it probably would have gone a little bit easier for me. Which means upon a rewatch, I think I'm going to end up liking this movie even more. I do recognize, this is one of those where I recognize this is a very well-made movie. This is a very well-made movie. And the performances, if we don't see at least an Oscar nomination, if not a win for Cillian Murphy in Best Actor, I will be shocked. I will be utterly shocked. And then also, likewise, a Best Supporting for Robert Downey Jr. I will be shocked. It's very well made. Once again, Nolan does the thing where he cuts cuts back and forth between different periods of time and different ways to try to convey the story. And in this case, he's doing the deposition with whether or not Oppenheimer should still have clearance, internal clearance and all that stuff, with what was happening during the Manhattan Project. And then, we get bits, before, flashing back to before, and, kind of getting some insight into his head leading up to this point. And, we're seeing the whole deposition with, I'm using that for lack of a better term, with Strauss during his hearing, or whatever you would qualify that as. There's a lot going on in this movie, and for 3 hours, it packs in a ton in that 3 hour time span. This movie does feel 3 hours. It does feel its runtime, which is sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. For this, I do think that it knocks it down a peg or two for me. But the performances, the story that Nolan is telling, and visually, there's moments in the film where visually he is conveying what's going on in Oppenheimer's head. And again, knowing that it's all practical, it's all in camera, I think was a fantastic thing. So for me, this is middle of the road in his filmography for me.
Wing Blade.
Nice. Don't read a history book. For me, this is middle of the road. I do think that this one will probably bump up over time, especially upon a chance to rewatch it here at home. I think it'll bump up. But for me, it is. I think I have it in the bottom of B tier.
Yeah. I'm going to preface before I say anything about this. I feel like we have a missed opportunity here. I don't feel okay with tier ranking Oppenheimer without also tier ranking Barbie. I feel like they need to be tier ranked at the same time. Those movies are inexorably intertwined for the rest of my life, for the rest of all of our lives. Just Barbenheimer will always live on.
Bump Inception down, and Barbie goes up with The Dark Knight. And S tier.
That's great. Yeah, so kind of like I feel like kind of like all over the place on this. Oppenheimer was a hard movie to follow if you don't know the historical context. Yeah. After watching Oppenheimer, I came home.
You guys really did this.
We filmed the review and whatnot, and in the time since, I have watched YouTube videos to try to give some more illuminate some more things that had actually happened during this. What actually was going on? What was the point of this person and that person? And I'm getting a little bit better of a well-rounded idea of exactly what was happening in this movie. Other than obviously you got Oppenheimer hiring all these people, building this community in Los Alamos, testing the bomb,
real quick,
and then fighting for clearance. But yeah.
Let you continue gathering your thoughts. I'm going to make chat pay for this. Oppenheimer CDF. Suckers. Continue.
But yeah, this is a movie. So this one is one that, even though I feel like it was kind of convoluted if you don't know the history, this is a movie that I am willing to continue learning more about, and I'm eagerly awaiting to watch this movie again at home, where I can also double check and follow up on some things that I might not be getting clear, and also so I can pause this movie and go pee, because that's always great too.
So you can pause this movie, get breakfast, pause it again later to get dinner.
Yeah. And then pause it later on to get the munchies later on at night, at 2 a.m. It's going to be an all-day watch type of thing for me.
An all-day affair.
Yeah. It's a good movie. It's very well put together. The cast is amazing. It's huge. And everything you just said about like Oscar wise, absolutely. If Cillian Murphy has to be nominated, if not win. In my opinion, he's probably the front runner for winning the best Oscars this year. Who knows? Because I have a feeling the Oscars are just going to be all kinds of messed up because of other reasons. So we'll see how much of a shit show that's going to be next year. But otherwise, yes, I fully expect Cillian Murphy to be getting the Oscar as of right now. And definitely Robert Downey Jr. nominated for Best Supporting.
He's going to see this being front runner for Best Picture right now, too.
Yes, I could see this. What I'm wondering, though, is will Barbie be in that talk for Best Picture as well? I don't know. That's going to be really strange to see how they nominate, but
you're going to make a lot of comic book fans upset if Barbie gets in there, and very few comic book movies that have happened over the last decade and a half haven't been in there.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, it's, again, this is a good movie. I want to rewatch it. I need some more clarification on exactly what's happening and what they're talking about, because there's just a whole lot of science in this movie, and I don't know science. I like some science. I know that song. Does that qualify? I don't know.
Blinded me with science.
But yeah, I'll watch this movie again. I do also have this as a D. So it looks like I'm wanting to put all the historically made Christopher Nolan movies in D.
So the one thing this movie did do that I wanted to comment on that I thought was interesting was that it actually showed us the origination of the phrase that I believe Matt Damon used in The Martian, which when they were trying to figure out how to build the bomb, Oppenheimer just said, "We got to science the shit out of this."
Yeah.
That was my favorite part of the movie when Oppenheimer said that.
It's great. Anyways, so I have it D. Where did you put it?
I have it in the S-A-B. I have it in the B tier.
And where's the chat wanting to stick it?
The chat is saying C.
Oh, C sounds about right. So
BCD.
So that sounds like that is going to go C. I would say probably knock Following down and move Dunkirk over.
I mean, that's roughly about where I have things.
And that sounds roughly about right. So, I mean, for the most part, that means that this is my S tier and my F tier is exactly how I was thinking. Or this S tier and F tier is exactly how I was thinking.
I think things are all pretty much exactly where I had them, except, some things might be off by like one movie. Except for Interstellar, which I have at the top of S. But, I have Tenet and Insomnia switched. Following in Dunkirk, I have switched.
I wish this would not pop like that.
I actually have Memento down with Dark Knight Rises and Oppenheimer up there with Prestige in Memento's spot. Inception is where Interstellar is, and obviously Interstellar is at the top of S. So this is not too far off of where I was ranking.
I think the rankings on this, I don't really think that. The only thing I feel really strong about in this is the S and the F tier. Everything else, I'm happy with where it's at. I do believe Batman Begins is A tier. I'm okay with Interstellar A, Prestige and Memento being B. I think everything else is pretty good.
This is true. I said B, chat said C, and you said D. So with a B and a C, I think it would be the top of C.
I'm okay with that. I will make that move. Otherwise, I don't see like anything else really needing to move around.
I mean, again, I still cry that Interstellar is the fourth of those four movies, but again, I get everyone's got their own opinion.
Yeah.
Why did we introduce the chat vote feature? Just kidding. Kidding.
It's called interactivity. So yeah, if anyone else wants to submit like your own personal rankings to read off, so you can do so at streamlabs.com/cinefanatics. Like Commentating Nerd. Nerd's got S tier, Dark Knight and Inception, which that looks good. A, Batman Begins and Prestige. Close. B, Oppenheimer, Dunkirk. C, Interstellar and Insomnia. D, Dark Knight Rises and Memento. And F, Tenet and Following. And then he's saying that he doesn't like Memento much, but it's a groundbreaking film, so you can't stick it in F tier. No true Fs, in my opinion. Yeah. So, yeah, these are all good rankings there for it. So, yeah, that's going to be our ranking. I will try this time to get this like posted up on social media tomorrow. So feel free to comment. Share. You know, depression sucks. I'm not gonna elaborate, but depression is just it kills the mood for everything. No matter how much you enjoy doing things, it just so. Anyways, that is going to do it for there. Let's go ahead and have Carl remove the marquee. Let's go, Carl.
I feel like sometimes you really wish that it was somebody else who was removing the marquee
instead of Carl. Okay. I had the idea real quick. I just didn't have the time because I just thought of it today and I already had everything set up. But I was thinking of going back in the video of Carl setting up the marquee, since that is forward and the video of him taking down the marquee is played backwards. I was going to color the forward one black and white. Memento. Yeah. So thought that would have been funny and cute, but yeah, I didn't have time for it. So I was trying to be creative, but anyways, that is the marquee for tonight. An hour and a half. Did we really do a marquee in an hour and a half? Yes, we did. It's a lot of fun. These are fun movies. I love talking about these. Next month for August, that would be the birthday month of Mr. Christopher Adams over here.
I'm getting old. Yay!
So we are going to do something for his month. He is going to pick movies that he likes, not necessarily his favorites, but just movies that he likes. And then we're all going to tear them apart and re-rank them and tell him why his movie opinions just are terrible.
Basically, I'm probably going to pick around 15 movies, thereabouts. I'm not picking my top 15, but I'm picking 15 movies out of, my top however many movies that I consider my favorites. Yeah. So that way it makes sense if I want to rank something F tier in comparison, because it's okay. It's not in my top 15.
Yeah. So that will be next month. I don't know if we have like an actual date for that yet. But we will probably have that planned out, and we'll probably make that announcement, I would say, probably on the next tagline. We'll have that all ironed out, especially like what movies were tier rankings. So anyways, that will be next month for the marquee.
Is going to destroy me.
The La La Land ranking should be fun.
Because it is going to be on the list. Spoilers.
Yeah, like you'll have some like absolute favorites on there, but
yeah.
Anyways, that is going to be it for tonight. So thank you to everyone who is here live participating and voting. We very much appreciate y'all being here and participating. If you are watching this on a rewatch, we definitely appreciate you watching it as well. We are like really starting to circle the drain as far as approaching 2,000 subscribers. So we're about to dive into like the final 100 subscribers before we hit 2K on here. So please, if you have not subscribed yet, come on over and subscribe so we can grow bigger.
It's free.
Yeah, doesn't cost you anything, and it's just great. It helps us out. So, yes, please subscribe if you haven't done that already. Again, if you're watching this on a rewatch, comment down below your thoughts, feelings, and opinions. And while you're down there, like and subscribe. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and whatever that bird app is going by nowadays. Who knows? You can follow us at Cinefan Oh, we had the wrong one up here this whole time. It's not Cinefanatics MLP. I have not updated this.
Nice.
So my bad, people. Is the Cinefanatics instead of Cinefanatics MLP. So, oopsies. So yes, follow us at the Cinefanatics. You can follow me personally at Robert Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Also youtube.com/@RobertAdamsMLP. I will be working on some stuff here shortly for that. So now that this massive week is over. And Chris? Yeah.
You can follow me at Chris Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, as well as twitch.tv/Chris Adams MLP. And yes, I am still calling it Twitter. I don't care.
Also, real quick, hop on that Patreon, patreon.com/Cinefanatics. Tomorrow night, we are doing our Patreon watch along of Ant-Man. So that should be a lot of fun. That is a fun movie. So come join us. We're watching Ant-Man. What's wrong? What could be bad about that? You like Ant-Man? We like Ant-Man. Let's all watch it together, okay? Anyways, that is going to do it for tonight. So thank y'all for joining us. Thank you for being here and watching. We appreciate each and every one of you, and good night.
Bye.
Bong. So my Hans Zimmer impression. Oh, how about the real music?
And now we present the start of the show because it's Chris Nolan movies.